Hi everyone, Peter here from Flow High Performance, and in this video, we'll be covering how to periodize and progress speed training for maximal running speed. First and foremost, we need to establish what exactly we mean when referring to speed. In this instance, we are talking specifically about linear speed, meaning running as fast as possible in a straight line. So in this video, we'll not be covering change of direction ability or repeated sprinting. We'll simply be talking about linear speed. Let's now explore the different elements that contribute to linear speed. When referring to speed training, we need to consider exactly what distance the athlete will cover. The distance of the sprints will slightly alter the elements which contribute to successful performance. We have three elements which will contribute to sprint performance and will be more or less emphasized based on the distance of the run. These elements are acceleration ability, maximum velocity, and speed endurance. Acceleration ability refers to how fast an athlete can reach their maximal speed. This is seen in the first phase of a sprint during the initial 10 to 30 meters. Once an athlete has accelerated maximally and are running at their fastest speed, they have now entered the maximum velocity phase. An athlete can usually only hold this top speed for around 20 to 40 meters before slowing down slightly. And the last element of sprinting is speed endurance. This is the ability to hold maximum or near maximum velocity for an extended duration. This is important for athletes in the track events of 200 and 400 meter sprints, where a very fast velocity needs to be maintained for a long period of time. Now that we understand the primary elements of a maximal effort sprint, we can explore how to train for speed. Depending on the sport of the athlete, different elements may or may not be trained. For example, a 200 meter sprinter will require all three elements of sprinting in their training, while an American football player may only require acceleration and maximum velocity training. For the sake of this video, we'll assume that all three elements are going to be required by the athlete, so we can see how to periodize and program all three elements. The first step is to decide how many days per week the athlete can train. Let's use a frequency of 3 days per week for this example, with each day having a different emphasis. Let's say the athlete will be doing speed training on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We can undulate the emphasis of each day based on our elements of speed. So Monday will be an acceleration focused day, Wednesday will be a maximum velocity focused day, and Friday will be a speed endurance focused day. The next step is to decide which exercises to select. Since we are programming for speed, the exercises selected are going to be some form of sprinting. We won't be including plyometrics, power, or strength training in this video, so only the speed exercises will be implemented. The only real change in exercise selection will be the starting position of the sprint. This can be tailored to the athlete's sport based on what positions they need to accelerate from. For example, a track sprinter may want to use block starts since they are a skill that needs to be practiced for their races. Whereas a field sport athlete may want to use a 2-point standing start, walking start, or a rolling start since it replicates the start of a sprint as seen in a competitive match. Furthermore, the starts used matter more for the acceleration sessions and less for the speed endurance sessions. This is because the emphasis of the acceleration session is purely to enhance the first 10 to 30 meters of the sprint, while the speed endurance day is addressing the point when the athlete reaches top speed. The other exercise which can be of benefit for the athlete to perform during sessions is resisted sprints. This should be programmed on the acceleration day, since this is the most similar quality and it will have the most transfer to acceleration performance. So let's select the following exercises for this training program. On Monday, we will have block starts and sled pulls. On Wednesday, we have chosen 3-point starts, and on Friday, we have chosen rolling starts. Next, we need to establish rough distances that each session will use. For our acceleration focus sessions, we will use distances of around 10 to 40 meters to emphasize the start of the sprint. For the max velocity day, we will use distances of between 30 and 80 meters to ensure that the athlete reaches top speed. And for the speed endurance day, we will use distances of between 100 and 400 meters. The speed endurance day will use longer distances only if required for the athlete's event. Otherwise, distances greater than around 200 meters are probably not necessary. The last fundamental component to consider when creating a speed training program is intensity. In the case of speed training, intensity refers to how fast the athlete runs relative to maximal intent. Intensity is a fairly simple variable to prescribe for speed training. This is because we essentially need to be running at very close to maximum effort to induce the required adaptations. There is no value in training at 70% effort if the goal is to become faster. So for acceleration and maximum velocity training, the intensity should almost always be 100% effort. For speed endurance training, the intensity may be slightly lower in order to maintain the speed for a longer duration. So around 90 to 95% effort is usually a good range to be in. Now that we have established the foundation of our speed training program, we need to understand how to periodize the plan to be in peak form when we need to perform at our best. The first step in periodizing the training program is to understand what time frame we have to peak the athlete. We cannot be in peak condition continuously throughout the entire year, so we need to know exactly when we want to be in peak condition. This might be for an important competition on a single day, or for an important group of games over a month period for a team sport athlete. Whatever the case is, the entire training plan will be aimed at having the athlete be in the best condition at this time of the year. Let's say the athlete has 16 weeks before they want to be in peak condition. These 16 weeks can be broken down into mesocycles, making it easier to program the training. Let's break this down into 4 blocks of 4 weeks long. Now we need to establish how the training program will be progressed. First, we need to consider what the exact goal of the athlete is. Let's assume this athlete simply wants to improve their sprint time over 100 meters, with a competition at the end of the 16-week training period. The method of progression here is that distances will start shorter and increase over the 16 weeks to longer and more specific distances. The purpose of this progression model is to first establish a baseline force and speed qualities, and then allow the athlete to repeat these qualities for longer distances. The acceleration training day will use distances starting with 10 meters and progress up to 40 meters. These distances will be used for both the block starts and the sled pulls. The max velocity training session will use distances starting from 50 meters and progress to distances of 80 meters. And the speed endurance session will use distances starting from 100 meters and progress to 130 meters. Now that we have explored the big picture concepts, we can finally plan the speed training sessions in detail. We will do this for all 4 training blocks, one at a time. For the first block, we will start with a distance of 10 meters for the block starts and sled pull on Monday, 50 meters for the 3-point starts on Wednesday, and 100 meters for the rolling starts on Friday. Each week, the distances gradually increase by 5 meters for each session. Monday and Wednesday should be performed at maximal effort, while Friday is ran at around 90 to 95% effort. It should also be noted that the number of sets is lower in the first week. This is so that the athlete can ease into the training program rather than to suddenly ramp up the volume. It also acts as an unloading week, allowing the athletes to recover from any previous training. The sled pull uses a heavy load, which is going to be relative to the athlete performing the exercise. We want to use a heavy load further from our time to peak, since this will help build force production qualities, which should transfer to faster sprint speeds later on in the training plan. The second block has a very similar setup as block 1. The only difference here is that the distances have increased slightly, which is slightly more specific to the 100-meter race. It will also expose the athletes to higher average speeds throughout the week, and therefore have them in slightly better 100-meter race condition. However, they are still not in absolute peak condition, since there is still another 8 weeks of training after this block is finished. Monday uses distances of 15 to 30 meters, Wednesday uses distances of 55 to 70 meters, and Friday uses distances of 105 to 120 meters. The level of effort is still maximal for the acceleration and max velocity days, and 90 to 95% effort for the speed endurance day. The load for the sled pulls has also decreased to a moderate load, which will allow slightly faster speeds to be reached. And once again, the first week acts as an unloading week, allowing fatigue to dissipate from the previous block of training. The third block once again follows the same trend. Distances have increased slightly from the last block. The same progression model is being followed. Distances increase 5 meters each week, while volume remains the same apart from week 1. The sled pull also uses a light load now for maximum transfer to unloaded sprint performance. The start position has also changed on Wednesday from a 3-point start to a block start. This will give the athlete more practice using the blocks, since they are getting closer to their competition. The athlete should be in good condition by the end of this block, as they are performing very specific training to the 100-meter event. This brings us to the final block of the training program, where the athlete needs to be in absolute peak shape for the 100-meter race. This block follows a slightly different model of progression in order to taper the athlete. In this block, the distances remain the same each week, but the volume decreases. So the first week uses the highest volume, and this gradually reduces by 1 set each week until the final week of the training block. The final week leading into the race also uses a slightly lower effort of 90% for the acceleration and maximum velocity sessions, and 80% for the speed endurance session. This will allow the athlete to conserve energy for the upcoming race. This block should have the athlete in peak condition going into their competition, as we are programming the most specific training and reducing fatigue over the course of the block. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already.